Hari Om Tat Sat. Welcome to Jyotirmayananda Society, a journey to self-realization. Please subscribe for the mystical meanings of the scriptures and to enjoy daily satsang. We are currently exploring the book Yoga of Perfection, which is the summary of Bhagavad Gita, and we are currently studying key points from the Bhagavad Gita to help us deepen our yogic practice. A yogi on the path of integral yoga brings these in his life with a gentle effort, but when these become spontaneous and demand no effort, he becomes perfected, a siddha. So you basically master uh, these things like discipline and the various yogic techniques and the art of doing meditation. All that becomes spontaneous, and then you become a master, a perfected one, a siddha. Until then, we are students, we are learning. So, therefore, we will make mistakes, we will have to continue the journey under a spiritual preceptor who can guide us and show us how to improve, answer our questions, and so on. Next bullet, sadhana or spiritual means is nothing but siddhi, perfection tinged with the limitation of effort and activity. And siddhi is nothing but sadhana in the state of utmost perfection. So, again, to restate, sadhana is our journey where we are putting in the effort and practicing and so on. And siddhi is where you have already done all that and now you are enjoying that state. Think of yourself as a PhD student. You are in the process, so therefore you are putting in the effort and the required studies. That is your sadhana. And then when you graduate, you have mastered it. You now are qualified to be a professor, and you don't have to go through the dissertation and studying so hard and so on. So it becomes spontaneous and natural. Much in the same way, the yogis who have acquired the discipline are now siddha, and those who are still in the process are um, sadhana, performing their sadhana. Next, a yogi becomes sthita prajna or a perfected devotee and trigunatita. Trigunatita is one who has transcended the three gunas of nature, which are tamas, rajas, sattva, which we have already covered. Ignorance and inertia, activity and passion is rajas, and purity and harmony is sattva. And then beyond that is the state of turiya or transcendental. We go beyond time and space in that one. So most people are always obviously in the three gunas of nature. So the key is to first increase our sattva, to infuse it with purity, so that we can then transcend that and go towards enlightenment. And finally, the point here, he is established in the intuitive vision of life. That siddha, that sadhana, that yogi is getting ready to enjoy prajna or enlightenment or self realization. So he sees God as the only reality. So for his sadhana means he has to walk on this path with firm steps, with firm dedication, and he doesn't have to believe it. He's convinced inside that God is the only reality. This earth, water, fire, air, ether are all his magical elements, and he is not affected by the gunas of sattva, rajas, and tamas. Rather, every guna becomes an aid in his spiritual personality. So he benefits from the gunas also. Tamas, instead of creating impediment, causes the persistence of discriminating vision, gives him some rest. Rajas becomes the basis of universal activity, promoting peace and harmony in all. And sattva or purity continues to reveal the transcendental glory of the self. So somebody established in yoga is now using the three gunas to his advantage. Moving on to the next topic of self realization and how these points help us. The innermost self is one non dual, eternal, immortal, infinite, beyond the world process, devoid of all changes and modifications, and is the embodiment of peace and bliss. What we are talking about, the Atma or the consciousness within us that makes us do everything that we do. Because of that consciousness, we can move around, see, talk, eat, sleep. All that is done through that light of the inner light, the divine consciousness. So it has all these attributes of being non dual, meaning only one consciousness pervades through everything. It's eternal, it was not it's forever, it's not time bound, immortal, it will never end, it was never created, infinite, it is continuing on and on beyond the world process, which is subject to birth and death. No changes to it, like our body changes from a baby body, it grows into a youth and then old age and so on. In this case, there is no change to the Atma, ever the same. When you were born, when you die, when you take a new body, all that is changing, but your consciousness or Atma is the same. And it is the basis of your peace and bliss. That's why it is also known as Sat Chit Ananda. This next point, this is the self known by various names. People call it Brahman, the absolute, they call it Ishvara, the Lord of the universe, they call it Paramatma, the supreme self, Satchitananda, existence, knowledge, bliss, absolute, Purushottama, the transcendental self, and God with his diverse manifestations. So don't get confused with the names, they all mean the same thing. Next point, for the intuitive mind, self realization is an act of revelation, like the appearance of the vast sky with the dispersal of the dark clouds. It is spontaneous, without any effort, without any change and modification in the innermost plane of consciousness. So, it is a revelation. You cannot get it just by your self effort. It comes from divine grace and your effort, and whenever the soul is ready to display itself, to expose it to you when you are ready. Just like, for example, a bud blooming into a flower. It will happen for a sincere aspirant, but you cannot rush the process. It has to come spontaneously. But, next point, the state of self realization causes dynamic transformation in every plane of one's being. When you achieve that state, the veil of ignorance is lifted from the causal body. Therefore, a sage can glimpse the realm of non duality even while awake and engaged in different duties of day to day life. So, this is very important because many people are confused about what that state would look like or what would be different, how would it work. Basically, like you dream, you are sleeping, when you wake up, your dream is gone. You don't see the, you remember the dream, you remember the experience, but you don't worry about it. Much in the same way, when you get enlightened, you wake up from the world process, you see the world, you are in the world, you react in the world according to the needs, but it continues to be for you a dream, and for one who has attained enlightenment, and for others it is simply still a reality, because that is what they are going through. While you are in your dream, that is your reality. You are watching, you are experiencing, but when you wake up, nothing happens. Much in the same way, the same thing applies here to the enlightened sages. There's nothing to be, um, it's all non dual, there is all one homogeneous mass. So we will have to experience it, it cannot be described, so to speak. Next point, for a sage of self realization, the perception of peace and serenity is perpetual, like a flowing river. The aspirant who has now become self realized continues to experience peace and serenity, whereas most people don't know that feeling. They only see prosperity and adversity, some joy and happiness, followed by some pain. So, once that curtain lifts, the ignorance veil is removed, This becomes the state. The perceptions caused by the intelligent intellect, mind, and senses while engaged in the world do not overpower the radiant perception of the self, just as the presence of the fading moon and stars do not affect the rising sun. So, very simple. That is the state of his situation, of his feelings, and it's like witnessing the sun directly. His intellect becomes intuitive, his sentiments, feelings towards the objects of the world is covered into the stream of divine love, and therefore, though seemingly attached to the objects, he is in reality attached to the inner reality of the objects, which is the self. So he sees the self in all, he sees himself in everything. So he sees every object as a mirror reflecting the eternal self. Next point, his desires become true desires, his thoughts are converted into pure thoughts, and his impressions of the unconscious are replaced by the impressions of illumination and universal awareness. The ego center in him does not obstruct the vision of the self. He experiences an integral surrender, the surrender of every part of his being to divine reality. He merges into cosmic consciousness. Next point, his actions become expressions of divine will operating for the universal good. He becomes an instrument in the divine plan. He becomes absolutely selfless, detached, and participates fully in the universal activity proceeding from divine will. A perfected sage is liberated even in life. That's why he's called a Jivan Mukta. He continues to operate through the mind and senses while being established in the transcendental vision of the self in the inner realms of his heart. He develops a double consciousness likened to a man taking a bath in the cool stream of the Ganga during hot weather. He is aware of the heat of the sun, but he is simultaneously aware of the coolness of the Ganga river, the Ganges. So, such is the state of these enlightened masters. With this, we have completed this beautiful journey that we were on this yoga of perfection. And in tomorrow's satsang, we will be starting a new book from our worshipful Gurudev Swami Jyotirmayananda Maharaj. May divine Krishna, the Lord of Yoga, bless you with an aspiration to tread the path of integral yoga and attain nirvana liberation even in this very life. This is Swami Nikhilananda. Hari Om Tat Sat.